This Monero Matteo video is sponsored by Cake Wallet. Safely store, send, receive, and trade your Monero on Cake Wallet on Android and iOS. What up, bros? Monero Matteo, welcome back. It's been a little while, hasn't it? It's good to be back with y'all today, and I don't really have too much to talk about. There really isn't too much going on in Monero land, is there? We had a little bit of a pump when we did our little run on the exchanges, just to see if they had all the Monero that they did. It wasn't that we were conspiring to take them out necessarily, but we just wanted to check to see if they were being honest. And it looks like now there's a list on Reddit, on the Monero Reddit, as to which exchanges you can anticipate are doing some fractional reserve stuff, which ones maybe are likely to do it. Maybe we'll go through that in a different video. But ultimately, guys, you know to just get your Monero off the exchanges so that they can't hoodwink you and take advantage of you and take advantage of all of us at the same time, because the more Monero they have on the exchanges, the more they can lend out to other people, and the more that they can fractionalize this stuff and dilute the price, right? So Yep. We got featured in many publications, I got to tell you. It was a really big success, I think, in that case. And I think that we got a lot of publication and a lot of notoriety cred. And I think that's good, because some of the publications that we had seen over the last year talking about Monero had been talking about it in kind of a negative light. Kind of talking about it the same way that they talked about Bitcoin back in like 2013. It's like, oh, it's dark hood money, you know, the Jose Sanchez of the world are using this in order to do bad things on the internet, ooh, you know. And so the White Taco Supreme stuff too, you know, the only people using it are people who look like me and are nefarious creatures, kind of like the type you would see in Ukraine, but they don't want you to know about that, really. Bad people that they just don't want you associating with, and therefore they don't want you associating with our love of Monero. That was a lot of the press that we had been seeing, and we actually did a video on when Slate came out against Monero with a very dishonest article. But it was good to see some of the Reddit bros, like Body Anarchist, who I very much respect. He's one of the big Monero Reddit bros who always has great takes on things. He was featured in a publication, or two actually. And yeah, the word got out that there could be fractional reserve stuff going on. Now the Bitcoin bros seem to think that that's taking place with their crypto. And a lot of people are just skeptical about these centralized exchanges now, which is good, which they should be, because there are some questionable things that we think are happening, and we have reason to believe. But ultimately, big success. That's probably the first of many. And I'm very excited to see what comes next as more people want to join the fray. And I think more people are getting interested in Monero. Again, as we've talked about, as it moves up in the ranks, it's going to have more legitimacy, because just, you know, the low IQ nihilistic swamp creatures out there who just look at coin market cap in order to get their, you know, base perception as to a particular currency and how much value it has, which, you know, you can get market cap value, but that's a very small sliver of what the value of a particular crypto can provide, particularly Monero. You're not looking at transaction volumes. You're not looking at how much this stuff is used in real-world economic activity. And, you know, if you look at the comparison between Monero and Bitcoin for real-world economic activity, I mean, they're very comparable. If not, Monero is more useful than Bitcoin. Cake Wallet came out and said that when it came to I think like either using Bitcoin or Monero for purchases, or just accepting Bitcoin or Monero for donations, or just for give-outs, most people chose Monero, which was quite interesting. And, you know, now it's taking over the dark web markets. We've made videos about that in earnest now. I mean, that's been happening for a while, but it's particularly happening now that that Hydra marketplace, which was a Bitcoin-only marketplace, got shut down, and that was a huge marketplace. So now, you know, a lot of these darknet marketplaces are going to have, you know, the excuse to just go totally Monero, and they should, because of some of the other things that we've seen in regards to marketplaces having trouble with OPSEC using Bitcoin. So yeah, good things happening. Good things happening, bro. So I just wanted to get to these super chats, and then we'll talk about some other news items going on. So I got my Pirate Chain wallet open. That's what's up. So if you guys want to Send me a private super chat. You can send a message through Pirate Chain, which is a cool feature of the project. I forgot what they call it. It's like Rum Run or something like that. And you can send a little bit of Pirate Chain through there, and it's sort of like a private super chat. It's sort of cool. You can do that with Concealed Network and Xano too, but nobody really does that. Kind of obscure private cryptos that I think are just interesting speculative things that may work out. And Concealed Network's kind of cool in that, like, it's like a banking type deal. It's like you can freeze up certain amounts of your concealed network, and you get an interest payment over a certain period of time on that concealed network that you lock up. I'm not sure what goes on behind the scenes. I know that they have a very slow mining schedule, and some of that probably gets diverted to the interest payment. I'm not sure. That's something you'd want to look into, but it's interesting. You can send messages through there. It's kind of cool. But on my Pirate Chain wallet, I get a message. It says, "Great videos. Keep spreading the word about Monero and other projects like Pirate Chain. So did you try Linux yet?" And yes, the Linux berating continues. Yes, I'm going to get a new laptop at some point. I've just been incredibly busy. But when I do, Linux is the first thing that's going to be thrown on there, I promise. And now that Luke Smith called me out on some show that he did like a month ago, he's like, "Yeah, I know about Monero Matteo. He goes on boomer walks in the woods sometimes." Which you do too, by the way. Yeah, he's like, he uses Linux, and it's like, how can Monero bros use Linux? If you're about internet privacy and information sovereignty and all this stuff, you got to use Linux. Otherwise, you can't really be taken seriously. It's like, okay, fine. I get it, and so I'm going to be doing it. And he says, "So did you try Linux? If not, I suggest setting up a spare laptop computer with a friendly Linux distribution. I do not have a spare laptop or computer like Manjaro KDE, and start using it." Yeah, I've heard so many suggestions. I don't even want to go through them all. It's crazy. You guys are like way on top of this stuff. I think you won't be disappointed. If you need recommendations or help from the community, just ask. Cheers. Thank you so much. Yes, I've received a lot of offers of help, which is great. I mean, that's how you really make change, guys. So I'm glad that you guys are on top of it the way that you are. Kind of inspires me to get in the program and sort of spread the word myself. Tommy here. What's up, Tommy? Digging this Pirate Chain stuff. Legit technology with strong meme potential. Yes, it does have strong meme potential. And that's one of the main reasons I'm in it, to be honest with you. It's the meme is powerful. The meme is powerful. And you know what else has very powerful meme potential? Turtle Coin. Anybody? Are you guys on top of Turtle Coin? It could be a big sleeper cell. Even though it's worth 1 sat per Turtle Coin, and there are absolutely 0 bids for it on TradeOrder, I'm telling you, there's something about Turtle Coin. Something about Turtle Coin going on. But yes, Pirate Chain's pretty cool. Strong community, very strong community. I love the community. It's very good. Even though I'm kind of moving away from the whole anarchist community vibe type deal, I'm just moving away from the whole libertarian deal in general. I think I'm becoming sort of like a hyper-nationalistic, monarchist, orthodox bro. I think that's the direction I'm going. Not quite there yet. If you follow me on Telegram, I've been making some arguments for monarchy and how there are really only 2 forms of government throughout history in practice. You've either got oligarchy or you've got monarchy. Now, monarchy typically works best, of course, when it's religious-based. And in the United Kingdom, it used to be that monarchs were given Holy Communion, and there was sort of like a sacramental process to the crowning of a new monarch, to the anointing of somebody to head the state. It was sort of like a religious-type program. And so that gave the country a kind of perspective of the state, which said, yes, there is a lawgiver above all, and there is no amount of power that one could attain on this earth to override the law that is set by God, that is set by the divine authority. And that's a little bit different when you have an oligarchical system like democracy, which is ultimately what it is. And what is valued more than anything is power. You can change the law as much as you want if you have the majority. And the same is kind of the case with the Republic too, although you have a constitution typically which protects against individual rights, but typically republics become democracies, and then democracies become socialist systems, as Karl Marx talked about, and then socialist systems typically become communist systems, which is what Lenin said. I might be switching up those quotes between Lenin and Marx, but that's observably true. When you have an oligarchical system, power is consolidated, and the population gets very frustrated, and so then there's one oligarch who typically gets a lot of state power, and then kind of continues to plunder the population, but makes the population feel better because there's a lot of redistribution stuff going on. Then it turns into a very austere system and blah, 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 right? But I think that with a monarchy, it's interesting because you do have that respect and that recognition that there is a law above all powerful entities. Now, does that mean that monarchies can't be corrupted? Absolutely they can. And if anything, you don't want a monarchy if you don't have any spiritual underlying structure, because then you get like North Korea, which is sort of like a familial monarchical system, but it's totally atheistic, and so it's absolutely miserable. There's no recognition of the value of the individual, which is what you get in Christian societies and Christian governmental systems. Which you used to have here in the United States, you used to have here in the West, which is why democracies, while being, I think, a pretty dangerous form of government ultimately, because the incentive structures lead to just total pillaging. I think that at least there was some Christian element which made it so that, culturally speaking, you couldn't go far enough to where we've gone today, where we've got a satanic society. Individual valuations don't really matter, even though everybody likes to yap about human rights, which is totally meaningless. It's sort of like when I was in, the rave scene, I guess you could say, back when I was in early college, late high school. You go to the rave scene and be like, "Plur, bro," and everyone would have like these, candy pieces on. That's what they called it, was candy, and to have like all these words that made you feel good on there, like peace, love, respect, and unity. We're all in this together. And meanwhile, they're just getting freaking blitzed off every drug that they can find, and they're stealing from each other. They're gossiping about each other behind their backs, and they're going home to their parents to beat them. I actually had experiences that were really intense, and so. Not to get into all these things, I can tell you guys stories if I meet you, but it's sort of like this meaningless thing that sounds good to people who have grown up in the afterglow of a Christian society, but ultimately are just manipulative tactics in order to get more power, in order to get more cred. And that's all that matters in a secular world, is how much power you have. And, if power overrides the law and the recognition of it, then you really get into a civilizational collapsing type of system, which is what we have. So not to get into all that, I just went on a total rant. Let me know what you think. There are more arguments I can make about monarchy versus oligarchy, but it is interesting. You gotta note, when it comes to Trump, when it comes to Elon Musk, it's becoming ever more obvious that the United States is an oligarchical system. I mean, everyone points at Russia, and it's like, oh, it's a kleptocracy. It's run by a bunch of oligarchs. It's like, yes or wait. You think that we actually have some kind of respectable form of I mean, they tried. The founders tried to make this like system of checks and balances so that everything checked out. But the problem is, if you get somebody powerful enough in order to buy out enough people, or at least to create a culture which is influential enough in order to influence all the people who are going into all those different systems which are supposed to check each other, then you're able to move the Overton window enough to where you can move the government, and then you have control in a way that couldn't be anticipated by the founding fathers before. And a lot of that has to do with mass media. A lot of that has to do with the information asymmetry and the power which is given to people who have a lot of money and a lot of influence, right? So that's why Trump won the 2016 election. I mean, he was just absolutely amazing with media. And then it turns into a celebrity culture type thing. Money also plays into that, of course. But yeah, now with Elon Musk on the scene, buying out information streams, as we just talked about, and that's going to make him all the more powerful. And I've talked about the Elon Musk thing a little bit on the social media webs. It's not too big a deal to me. My whole thing is like, look, even if somebody isn't on your side, quote unquote, you got to respect when they're doing something that is otherwise good by the grace of God. And there are some good things about Elon Musk, some bad things. Then there are some good things about Trump, some bad things. I mean, you can't just outright hate these people, and you can't outright worship them. I made a tweet that was I think my most shared tweet ever, which isn't really saying much. I'm not very popular, but it was this tweet about Elon Musk and how he's basically forerunning the Great Reset. He's the guy out there making these electric cars, these automated vehicles, which are probably going to be able to trap you in the car and take you to a police station or take you to somewhere you don't want to go if somebody hacks into it. I mean, this has been talked about in lectures. Go look it up. And, he's making these technologies which interlink with your brain and interface with your consciousness. That's pretty concerning, too, especially now that there's evidence seemingly that these can be hacked, which you could probably otherwise anticipate. And then he's got like this ex-girlfriend of his, which is into the occult, and she's a socialist. He's a socialist too, mind you. I mean, I see a lot of conservatives praising him. He's the most courageous American we have, and it's like, dude, I mean, he's advocating for universal basic income. He's like one of the main voices behind this whole green revolution, climate change stuff. I mean, that's how he's made a lot of his money. That's how he's been able to convince so many people to buy his electric cars, is because, oh my gosh, the world's going to end if we all don't buy my electric car. So, I mean, it's sort of funny, right? And do people remember that he was totally on board with Bitcoin, and then he did a total 180 like a few days later and said, hey, this isn't very environmentally friendly, guys. I'm going to start pumping Dodge now. And then everybody hated him. And so everybody has this like love-hate relationship with Elon Musk. To me, he's got kind of like a nihilistic kind of vibe where it's just like he's got so much money, he's got so much power that he's kind of, trolling everybody, and why not, right? But, he's not much of a Christian either. He's atheistic, and I'm not saying that to condemn him or judge him or anything like that, but typically if you're an atheist and you got a lot of money and power, it's hard to find meaning because you're already at the top of that which you strive to be dominant in. And it's sort of like, okay, what's next? Well, he's going out of the planet. He wants to colonize Mars, and that's healthy compared to what some other people do, which is just totally self-destructive stuff. But it's something you got to wonder about because otherwise people can fall into a nihilistic absurdism. How do you put it? Yeah, something like that. And you just kind of do weird things and make everything a joke, and it doesn't have an underlying purpose. It's just there for self-amusement. And if you fall into a nihilist state, the most valuable thing to you is self-amusement. And who knows what amuses Elon Musk, especially looking at Grimes, especially looking at his past relationship with Amber Heard, especially looking at the fact that the kid that they're raising has some weird, Egyptian hieroglyph name, and they're raising it to be non-binary, gender neutral. And again, I'm not trying to be judgmental. I'm just trying to have you guys express some level of discernment that says, hey, I'm not too sure about this guy. You know what I mean? Just sit back and be patient and wait. I'm not saying he's totally evil. I'm not saying he's totally good and we should worship him. Again, you got to have nuanced approaches to people. And, all these people who hated Trump for 4 years and had like apoplectic fits every time they woke up and checked their Twitter, it's just like, dude, sometimes he did some good things. Sometimes he was genuinely entertaining. And sometimes he did some things which are cruddy. That's just being people. That's just people. We're fallen people, right? But people need to have more discernment, and people need to not go into these savior complexes and stuff like that. People ultimately need to go to Christ, and people ultimately need to put their faith in that, not faith in men, because this could be a total, this could be just another total distraction, in my opinion, or just a way for people to reinvest their time, energy, and hope back into the system that the evil people have total dominion over. And you don't really want to do that. I've sort of run into this paradox, which is kind of interesting. It's an interesting paradox where it's like, if you lose all hope and faith in the world, you can get so black-pilled that you actually at the bottom of that find the white pill. And the white pill, of course, is Jesus Christ, of course, is God. And you go to find some meaning in eternity because you can't find meaning in the world because, looking at all the evidence, it's going all the way down. I mean, it's not good. And so you search for meaning. And in many cases, I think actually, when people are in their darkest moments, not just because they're blackpilling and dooming out about it the world, but whether you get into bad drug addictions, whether you get into terrible relationships with people and don't realize it after the fact, you get through like a bad divorce or something like that. Like when people are at their rock bottom, a lot of people find Christ because that's when we are the most open to sort of those calls, if you will. Because when life is going great, and you have your pride, and you have your lack of need for anything spiritual because all of your Maslow's needs, I guess you could say, are being met, then you don't really feel that necessity. But it's only when you get knocked down on your butt because pride goeth before the fall and you get humbled by the Lord. It's not until then that you start to go back to Him. But I spent many, many years looking for some kind of secular solution to all this stuff because I'm very optimistic, actually. And you guys have, I think, a decent perspective on that, although we do talk about a lot of black pill things on the channel. But I am naturally very optimistic. But, I look to libertarianism, I look to politics. This most recent stint was cryptocurrency. I thought we could really turn things around with crypto. And if the community was a little bit different and they could be taken more seriously, maybe that could be the case. But after being in this sphere for so long, and it's not been that long necessarily, it's been maybe like year and a half, 2 years, it's just total nihilism, and I just have no faith in the community at all. It's just a big marketing scheme, ultimately. And I actually had a tweet today about Bitcoin being like a nihilistic barometer. Like, there's so many people commenting on this one tweet somebody had where he said, "Oh man, before Bitcoin, I had no hope in the world. Now I have hope. I've seen the light. I've seen Satoshi's radiant grace." And it's like, people are commenting, yeah, Bitcoin equals hope, and I was nihilistic too. I had given up hope. I was about to, jump off a bridge or something like that, and then I found Bitcoin. I mean, I've been reading these things, and it's just like, oh my goodness, no wonder it has such a religious fervor to it. But this kind of stuff is sort of similar to the Elon Musk thing, right? Where it's just like there's something that the evil one puts out there in order to make people have faith in ultimately something which is going to fail, which is, the world, I guess you could say. I'm not saying that as a black pill thing. I mean, I'm saying that metaphysically. I mean, the world itself is temporary. It's transient. Everything comes and goes. It slips like sand between your fingers. And so to put all of your eggs in that basket, of course you're going to have despair. Of course you're going to get into some nihilistic state, but that's what I continuously got myself into. I mean, I would be arguing with people on the internet about Hans Hermann Hoppe and Hayek and Ludwig von Mises and Lysander Spooner, and trying to tell them about free market economics and why this stuff works and why we need to become a free market and all this stuff, right? It didn't work. And then I moved to cryptocurrency. I realized there was no hope in that either, really. And then it's just recently I've been realizing it's just like the only hope there is if people turn to Christ. And most people don't do that until they've lost all hope in the world. But one thing that's interesting is that when people turn to Christ in order to have hope in the eternal or to find justice in the eternal, a lot of people want justice in the world. They've been terribly wronged or they've seen terrible wrongs and they don't see it being righted. Well, then they look to God and they look to Judgment Day and the ultimate balancing of the scales at the end of time, right? They look to that kind of thing. But people then take on an eternal perspective. And when they take on an eternal perspective, that changes your phronema, your behavior, and your mindset completely. Because you then start to have an asymptotically approaching zero time preference, right? You're able to delay gratification on things for your entire life. And that's different when you're in a collapsing world where you just want to consume everything at once and you're not thinking, 1 week, 2 weeks from now. Because it's just like, I don't know if, Jerome Powell's going to have a bad day. Somebody spills coffee in his shirt and he decides to hike rates 20%. And so there's the more people that lose faith in the world, the more those people develop, if they turn to Christ, lower time preference behavior. And you need lower time preference behavior, which is delaying gratification if you don't know what that is, to then start to have the world be rebuilt, because the world can't be rebuilt if you don't have people who are willing to delay gratification and invest long-term in the world. Then the world just consumes itself. Everybody just takes on a short time horizon perspective, right? So it's sort of paradoxical. It's like you need people to lose faith in the world. You need people to lose hope in the world so that you actually can have hope in the future of the world, right? Because if you orient yourself towards eternity, which, by the way, it's not just a practical thing. I mean, you really do feel a timeless wellspring of love all around you. If you really tune yourself into God's grace, you partake in the life of the church, you partake in the sacraments, and you try to follow Christ's commandments the best you can, as hard as it is. Trust me, I know. Then, it's like you don't really worry about the world. And people will call you black-pilled, but really you've taken the ultimate white pill. I have no stake in the outcome when it comes to the world. None. I don't care what happens. They launch the nukes, whatever. I had no control over it. And ultimately, because of my relationship with Christ, if anything, that'd be a relief. It's like, get me out of here. I want to go to heaven, right? But that's something to consider. The more people who are like that, the more people who are able to become nodes in this world and facilitators of that unconditional love that Christ provides, the better the world is, the more hope you can actually have practically in the world. So that's just a little bit of a rant on that. I know I just went totally haywire with that. I'm still on my Pirate Chain wallet, and I just literally went off this stuff for a 2-sentence private super chat. So thank you so much. That was great. So how far along are we? 25 minutes. This is just going to be a long rant. Whatever. Inbox. Let's go to the Proton Mail, because I got some private super chats here too. Thank you guys for the support. You guys can send me some Monero or some other private crypto that I've got in the description below. I don't take Bitcoin. I don't like it. We don't like Bitcoin. So, where's the first one? So, Nick Watts. What's up, Nick? Sorry I've not gotten back to you. I know I'm a little bit late on that. I did see this a while ago, but it was during Holy Week, so I didn't want to be bothered with it. But I do like the idea of doing a chat. I don't know if I revealed you, and I shouldn't have. I apologize if I did. But you've got a book out called Crypto for Conservatives. So people can go check that out at cryptoforconservatives.com. You wanted to have a conversation about this, and you wanted to talk about faith too. Your background is Protestant, and you've read the Church Fathers. That's great. And you wrote a book called Taxation is Slavery, okay, which was actually a biblical defense of libertarian politics. Yeah, that's going to be rough. We're going to disagree about that. Now, I get you can do that as a Protestant, because Protestants can kind of, interpret the Bible any way that they want to. That's why you have like 30,000 different denominations of this stuff. But the Orthodox Church, we go by what the Fathers say, and the Fathers were largely monarchists. And there's actually biblical underpinnings to monarchy. So I'm not sure if you're going to be able to make that case, really, but I'd be open to hear it. I cited passages from, okay, cool. Irenaeus, Tertullian, Augustine to show that they acknowledge that taxes were a form of theft or slavery. Well, Augustine's an interesting case for us Orthodox. It's an interesting case. Exercised by the emperor. Form of theft or slavery. But here's the thing about the whole slavery thing, and this is one of the disagreements I have with a lot of the libertarians and crypto bros out there, is that they think like there's some sort of state of maximal freedom. And my conclusion that I've come to after all this time is that that doesn't really exist. If you really want no state, if you really want a stateless society, you're going to have strong internal monarchy being reigned. I mean, people are going to have a lot of self-control. And I don't see that with the libertarian people. I see just total degeneracy. And it's just like, I want to be left alone by big state daddy to do whatever the hell I want to. And you can't make a society of those people. You can't make a society of those. It's just totally degenerate. You can't do it. You'll be conquered in 5 seconds. Or you'll just collapse and people will go their own separate ways, because you don't have a nation state or a head of state like a monarch who is leading you in a particular direction and sort of exemplifies to the rest of the population what the lifestyle should be, what the pattern of living is. then people just go their separate directions, and there's no coherence to the society, which means there's ultimately nothing to defend on the behalf of everybody other than their own right and freedom to go their own separate directions. But I don't think that that's strong enough. I don't think that's a strong enough underpinning in order to encourage people to defend it. I really don't. But that's a theory we could talk about. Ultimately, guys, it's sort of ironic. And I had somebody tweet this in a message to me. It was a pretty interesting argument, which was government, while being totally inefficient and typically terrible at everything it does, it's one of the most successful enterprises in all of human history. Find me a group of people who have not had a government who have survived the past 50 years. I mean, in the Bible, it's been, from what I understand, a total catastrophe. It was actually a punishment on the behalf of certain people if they didn't have a king. I can't remember exactly the story that was, and I don't want to get too much into the theology, but I'm pretty sure, Incapistan was not looked upon very nicely in the biblical tradition. Traditionally, it was not seen to work, but government's very successful in that it's able to persist very long, sort of like a parasite, right? The longer a parasite lasts, the more successful it is, presumably from an evolutionary perspective, right? So, you getting rid of government, it's an interesting conversation. Whether it's inherently wrong, I don't know, because there is something which is valued in orthodoxy, which is the idea of obedience. And this was totally foreign to me when I was a libertarian, still to some degree coming to the Orthodox Church, because I was like, obedience? I mean, obedience to what? Someone who wants me to go to war for them, or who wants me to, contribute to the welfare state and the collapse of my country and all this stuff, right? I mean, you get that perspective of anti-obedience when you're living in a time period where governments are just totally crazy and ask too much for their population and treat their population very abusively. But ultimately, it's an interesting question, because if you have a monarchy, which was typically a private form of government, and conscription actually was not the status quo for monarchies for thousands of years. It was just you joined the military, you got paid for it. It was something that you were obedient to just because that was part of the ethos of the society in Christian society. It wasn't necessarily you did that out of fear, you paid your taxes. It was just like, oh, this is the tribute that we make to the king in order for all of us to be better off. Now, maybe they didn't totally understand the philosophy of that, but that's just sort of what it was. There was some good faith there. Now, sometimes you had a terrible king, in which case then it was maybe theft because people didn't see the king as legitimate. But I don't know. It's a totally interesting argument. The whole monarchy thing, I'm still having it grow on me. I'm still trying to justify, if it can be, the moral legitimacy of taxation, because that really is a tough one. I mean, it's simple, the argument that from the libertarians that taxation is theft, because if it wasn't taxation, or if it wasn't coercive, then it'd just be a donation, right? You'd be donating to the state, which is maybe why they called it back in the day a tribute, because that makes it sound more voluntary. But calling it tax, I mean, there's an implicit threat of violence, and that can't be a good thing. I don't know. It's an interesting debate. But, yeah, you can come on and chat at some point. That'd be interesting. You'd want to get my thoughts more on the Orthodox tradition. I could tell you my experience about Orthodoxy, but I'm not going to be able to talk theology in regards to the Orthodox tradition. I just haven't been in the church long enough, and I'm just not suited to have those discussions without being considered dangerous to all who hear it. Because theology is a very sensitive subject, and if you say the wrong thing in a theological context, you can really misguide people in ways that are very harmful to their spiritual health. So I don't want to do that. I would direct you to people like Jay Dyer, David Patrick Harry of the Church of the Eternal Logos, or just read the Church Fathers, right? Father Josiah Trenum is really good too. Cabane, I think he goes by Seraph now on YouTube. He's got some really good stuff. I can't remember his last name, though. Yeah, those guys know a lot more than I do. And then, of course, I'd love to chat with you about all things Monero and crypto. I recently created a small piece of software to help more people accept Monero. That's cool, dude. And then, that's cool, man. Yeah, we're going to have to talk about that. We could talk about anything else you'd like to discuss around Monero. Cool. Praying for you, mate. I'm praying for you, brother. Thanks. Thank you for the prayers. Thank you for the prayers. I could always use prayer. And then Kenneth, you had sent a private super chat. You say, Ken, I sent you a donation because you're one of the only ones and the only Monero guy. I mean, I make no claims. That's what he says. I know that doesn't have this magic messianic view. Promoting Monero is all good, but people treat it like it's a revelation from God. You don't, so I send you a donation. Very logical. All that said, pray for my family. My wife has entered labor several times, and we have twins due. God bless you, brother. Praying for you, Kenneth. I pray that your twins come out healthy and okay. What a blessing from God. You're going to be so happy, man. You're going to be so happy. That's just such a glorious blessing. So thank you, Kenneth. I appreciate that. I'm wondering if I should just leave this video the way it is. I had some articles pulled up. I don't know when I'm going to be able to make another video, so might as well just go through them. I do have a wedding to go to this weekend, which is going to be cool. My buddy Delta Ram getting married, getting tied up. So I'm going to be pretty much pulled away from anything regarding this all weekend. I know I've been very busy. But hopefully I can do some stuff next week. But that being said, let's just have some content. I mean, a nice 35.5-minute opening because of my freaking rants. Cannot shut up, but I think you guys maybe find it interesting. I've got some interesting takes. I just go wherever my mind leads me, really. I mean, I'm somebody who... Oh, by the way, this is the book by Nick Watts, Crypto for Conservatives. Pretty interesting. Go check it out. But, yeah, I just go where my mind takes me. I mean, that's what brought me to Monero in the first place. I mean, I can think independently. I can come to my own conclusions. And sometimes I find people out there who share my conclusions. And if I'm wrong, let me know. We can have debates about this stuff. We still have civilization here on the channel. We're not tribalist cultists. We will listen to the arguments and go wherever the truth takes us. So, legendary investor Ray Dalio recognizes traceability and fungibility issues with Bitcoin. How can we let people like him know about Monero? Well, I bet he does. I bet he is very well aware of Monero. Just like that hedge fund bro we talked about a couple months ago, who was pretty open about how Monero is the thing that everybody thinks Bitcoin is. And yeah, he's got some bags of Monero. I don't think he owns any Bitcoin. If he does, he just holds it because he thinks other dudes are going to buy this stuff because they don't know what it is. And more hedge fund bros are going to catch on to this. I would bet every Monero that I have that Ray Dalio knows about Monero. He has to. Now, whether or not he's going to get into it because of the small amount of liquidity, I mean, he's worth more personally than the entire Monero market cap. So maybe he doesn't find it very interesting. I mean, when it comes to people like Ray Dalio, maybe he'd throw a couple $1 million in there. It's nothing to him. But ultimately, if he's going to get seriously into it, he's going to need to see a bigger pool of liquidity, which means more trust. But let's hear what he has to say.
Gold. And I think gold is still my favorite because of certain qualities. For example, you can't trace it. In Bitcoin, you can trace who owns it, where it's going, and so on. Governments can have that ability to trace it and so on. Gold.
Ray Dalio doesn't like being traced. I wonder what he thinks about the CBDC. Of course he has Monero, guys. Like, you think he... Dude, how does somebody who knows about the traceability of Bitcoin not know about Monero? Of course they do. Because it's that contrast which makes people wake up to Monero. I mean, if you know about how crypto is traced, then you must have inquired at some point into what cryptos make it so that you can't be traced. Duh. So he knows about Monero. But that's pretty based. He knows about Bitcoin being traced, and he's telling millions of people on Lex Fridman. People need to know about this stuff, but moving on.
Piece of coin, it's not connected. I think not connected has benefits, particularly in a world where maybe connections can be more risky.
Connections can be more risky, right? And notice how he said, we live in a world where connections could be more risky. He does a lot of business with communist China. Surely he is aware of just how much everything is surveilled and who is surveilling it. He doesn't want to be like one of us, peon prey. He doesn't want to be tracked and traced. This is a man of good means. This is a man of wealth. He does not want to have all that stuff traced and easily conscripted and or taxed. You think he is not aware of unrealized capital gains taxes coming down the pike? Of course he is. He probably has a big amount of gold, like on his personal properties, plural, that he's not going to want to let the government know about. But who knows what level of knowledge he's at. But one thing is for sure, if you start to tell high net worth individuals about how you're going to have your money tracked and traced and made public on the Bitcoin blockchain, that's not attractive to them. It's just not attractive to them. So, what's next? No BS Bitcoin. New York Department of Financial Services issues new guidance to New York State regulated Bitcoin entities, establishing the use of surveillance tools as best practice. And I think they just banned Bitcoin mining recently, which is interesting. But let's check this out. There's some interesting sentences here that I want to comment on. This is cool, so check it out. It's not cool, but it's cool for us Monero bros because we've seen this coming, and this just compounds what we've already known. While such characteristics present compliance challenges, they also present new possibilities for control measures that leverage these new technologies. Now, if that sentence in and of itself did not send a shiver down your spine, then you're Monero bro, and you're not worried about this stuff. But if you're Bitcoin bro, maybe it did. For example, virtual currencies by their nature typically enable provenance tracing, i.e. review of previous transfers or hops along the public blockchain ledger or on-chain. Put differently, the blockchain ledger's immutability typically shows a historical view of a cryptocurrency's transmission between wallet addresses, providing the opportunity for greater visibility into transaction lineage that is typically found with traditional fiat fund transfers. Okay, so it's literally like fiat currency 2.0, except, oh, yay! I mean, they're not inflating trillions of it out of thin air until they come up with like a layer 2 that allows them to do that, and then it turns into like a gold V2 custodian monetary system. We'll see if that happens, but yeah, I mean, if the only thing you're excited about is that they can't print your Bitcoin out of thin air and there's a hard cap to it, I really don't see what the excitement is. I really, really don't see what the excitement is. It doesn't make sense. I mean, you've had terrible governments throughout time that have been on a gold standard, that have had slavery, that have started wars, that have done so many nefarious bad things. But all of a sudden, like, all that's going to be fixed with Bitcoin. Why? I mean, they can track and trace it better than they could when, you're on a gold standard, your government didn't really know how much money you had. I mean, how's this better? Somebody explain this to me. And they're going to raise your taxes, as we talked about here on the channel. I mean, they're going to make up that tax gap somehow. If they can see your funds, they're going to come after it. That's what Ray Dalio probably knows exceedingly well. So, yeah, it's just more coping on behalf of Bitcoin bros. AVC. Well, we don't need to read that. Yep. So check it out. Given the above noted characteristics of virtual currencies, the department emphasizes the importance of blockchain analytics to VC entities in addressing, for example, anti-money laundering requirements across a range of BSA, AML, and OFAC. Ding, ding, ding. OFAC is back. Related compliance controls. Yeah, guys, I'm telling you, like, OFAC compliant mining pools are coming. It's just a matter of time. And I actually think every time that I open Twitter, I see BlackRock trending on Twitter. Every time that I open the app. And it's just because everybody's becoming well aware of the nefarious shenanigans that they're up to. I mean, they're buying up all these homes. They are behind a lot of the politicians who get into financial positions in government. They're incredibly powerful. And now they're getting deep into Bitcoin mining. There are many implications to that we've talked about. But I think one thing they're going to advocate for, because they essentially are the U.S. government and Western governments in general, are OFAC-compliant pools. And they're going to KYC the crap out of everything. And it's just going to be, you're going to pray for a gold standard to come back once you start to see what they can turn this crypto stuff into, right? And it says here, augmenting know your customer related controls, conducting transaction monitoring of on-chain activity. So they're literally going to trace everything you do. It's going to be part of the regs. Conducting sanction screening of on-chain activity. Yep, so all that stuff we've seen coming, no big deal. Then John Foss, Monero Moon? That's your publication. It's pretty cool. John's cool, bro. Give him a follow. Number of privacy transactions in March. Monero, almost 700,000. It's pretty good. Zcash, 4,000. And there's been like this Monero versus Zcash thing going on Twitter. I guess people are upset that Haveno is putting Zcash on as a crypto that you can exchange on the platform. Now, I don't see why that's a big deal. I'm not a fan of Zcash. I'm not going to trade my Monero for Zcash. Who the hell would? But I mean, people are upset by this, presumably because Zcash doesn't even have that much liquidity. Why would you put it on there? That's not going to attract a lot of people to the platform. Why not just have like Cardano or even Dogecoin even? Because the Dogecoin bros are insane. They'll go wherever they need to go in order to get this stuff. So if they go to Haveno, maybe by association, they're going to get some Monero too. Whatever, but that's the argument that I'm seeing. I don't really care. Haveno's going to just continue to, up the amount of coins that they have on there. They'll get to everything eventually. Whatever. It does not matter to me. Samurai 2000. So not many people using the Samurai wallet. Again, nobody's reading the 60,000 page Bitcoin privacy guide. But yep, Monero's kicking tail in the domain that it was meant to conquer in. So I think that's it, guys. I think that's it. I'll be back some point next week. There just really wasn't all that much to talk about regarding Monero recently. The price is back down to what seems to be its eternal baseline of like 220. I mean, we got up to 280 or something like that, right? It's at 230 now. Okay. But yeah, whatever. I mean, it's going to go where it's going to go. I'm not worried about the price. Everything's going to come together. It's going to be like, and it's a diluvian flow, and people figure out about this stuff. It's just a matter of time. And even if people don't figure out about this stuff, I'm happy that people know about it to the extent that they do, because my money's off the system either way, and I'm going to be able to use this the way that I intend to use this. And with people like Doug Tuman out there who are getting so many people on board to this stuff, I've been seeing him on Twitter giving like waitresses and chefs at restaurants like tips and this stuff, which is just fantastic. I mean, he's setting them up in like 5 seconds with a cake wallet, giving them little tips on there, and then boom, they're adopted. They're part of the net. So good things like that are going to continue. Ultimately, I really don't care if the world adopts this stuff. I'm just glad that it's out there. But the more people that adopt it, certainly the better. More anonymity sets, more people that you can transact with this stuff with, the more liquidity, the more stuff that's going on off the exchanges, which means less shenanigans going on the exchanges with fractional reserve stuff. Yeah. So that stuff's great. All that stuff's great. But that's all I got to say. Monero Matteo. Hope you guys had a wonderful Easter. I forgot to even mention Easter. I don't even think I did. He is risen. Christ is risen. He is truly risen. God bless all of you guys. And I'll see you guys next time. Check out the donation links below. Again, thank you guys for the support. Thank you, patrons, Zaptosis, General Zap, Josh, Ken, Ronan, and Lutz. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. And check me out on the social media webs below. I got those there too. That's it. Bye-bye. Have a good one.